Please.
I'm Shivin.
Good morning, sir.
Please, good morning.
Thank you, sir.
So you are a doctor, Shivin,
Yes, sir.
but you don't want to practice medicine. You want to join the civil services.
Sir.
Why is that?
So medicine offers a great career. It also offers an opportunity to serve the country. But in my college, I participated in many Model United Nations and youth parliaments. I generated an interest in public policy and administration. Following that, I did a diploma in international affairs. I'm also currently working in the field of medical tourism. So I feel the civil services will give me broader diversity and a platform to augment my training at a broader scale.
There are a number of doctors joining civil services and engineers, and frequently there's people say that the number of seats in our medical colleges and engineering colleges is limited, and people have to compete. And then those who compete successfully and acquire professional knowledge, which is very relevant and needed for the country. Then they go and join generalist administrative positions, and that's a national loss. So, what would you say to that? Is it a national loss or is it not?
Respectfully, sir, I would like to say it is not a national loss. Specifically, I can talk about doctors. Firstly, India now has a doctor to patient ratio of 1:834, which is better than the WHO recommendation of 1:1000. Secondly, sir, health no longer is an issue that can be relegated to a doctor's chamber or a hospital alone. It is an issue of public policy, of global health. And I feel after the pandemic, we have all realized that if we integrate health with administration, we can reduce the burden on our hospitals as well.
So you do not think it's a problem if doctors perform generalist administrative jobs? There is no loss of knowledge, there is no loss of national resources involved here.
Sir, in medical college, out of the 19 subjects we are taught, there are some subjects that are related with public health and preventive and social medicine as well. So I believe doctors can use that knowledge in administration and help better the health system of the country. I don't think it is a loss. I think it will be a great profit for the country if health policy is formulated with the expertise of medicine.
But you wish to join the foreign service, and in the foreign service you will not have many opportunities of using your medical knowledge.
Respectfully, sir, I believe the foreign service will give me many opportunities to use my knowledge in health. Sir, I am currently working in the field of medical tourism, and recently the Honorable Prime Minister has said that this $6 billion industry must be transformed into a $15 billion industry. He wishes to make India a hub of medical tourism. Secondly, sir, there is global health diplomacy is becoming a very important and prominent field with issues such as pandemics, antimicrobial resistance, things that cross borders and are not limited to one country. Health recognition is important. Even in the upcoming G20 summit, we have added health system strengthening and health systems finance to the two tracks. And I think in these areas, apart from my other duties, I can contribute with my health knowledge.
So, assuming you are selected as a foreign service officer, would you regard promotion of medical tourism as one of the areas that you would like to focus on professionally? Promotion of India as a destination for medical services to people from across the globe.
So India is currently widely recognized as the pharmacy of the world. But I believe with promotion of medical tourism and the recent Heal in India and Heal by India initiatives launched by our Honorable Prime Minister, we have the potential to become the doctor of the world. Not only will we earn a lot of foreign exchange, it will be a great thing for our soft power as well.
How do you think did we handle so-called vaccine diplomacy? What are your thoughts on that?
Sir, I believe the Vaccine Maitri program, in which we outreach to our neighbors as well as other countries, was a good step. Unfortunately, we did face a second wave, and there were some issues because not all crises can be predicted. But I think the goodwill that we got through those vaccine diplomacy measures was returned to us when all over the world people came together to supply us with medical oxygen and facilities.
So it was a good step, but we also got a blowback when we had to go back on our commitments because our own domestic needs were more pressing. How do you think the Western countries could have responded better to the global vaccine crisis without affecting their own domestic needs. You take any major Western country, and if you were the leader of that, suppose you were in the position of Donald Trump or Joe Biden when the pandemic broke out, how would you have handled the question of vaccines and making vaccines available to others? What would you have done?
Sir, as an American president, I would have kept the principle in mind that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice anywhere. The Americans went for vaccine nationalism. They hoarded 4 to 5 doses of vaccines for their own citizens, while in Africa this vaccine was not available. As the American president, I would have advised my foreign secretary or the secretary of state that if vaccine transmutates in some countries where vaccine availability is not there, we will need more vaccines as well. So I would have called for a more equitable distribution of vaccines and a more unified health response. So we would not have seen so many variants as we are seeing now.
Okay, let's look at three, as I see, maybe more and I could get completely wrong. I see three models of response to the pandemic. There's the Chinese response, there's the American response, and there's the Indian response. So tell me what were the strengths and weaknesses of each of them.
Sir, with your permission, I'd just like a few seconds to formulate this answer.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. So as far as the Chinese model is concerned, I believe the zero COVID policy was misplaced, since it has been now found that COVID is best countered through a hybrid immunity approach, where we give vaccines as well as let people get infected at a small level with some variants so that they develop both sorts of immunities, the one coming from the vaccine and one from a natural infection. So I think the zero COVID approach was a problem. Secondly, in the Chinese case, they refused to import vaccines even after Pfizer lifted its IPR requirements. They continue to trust the Sinovac, which has a very low efficiency. So I think that was an issue. Other than that, the Chinese also could have dealt with it better in the initial stages. They did not give the information well. As far as India is concerned, sir, I think India has been one of the best responders to the pandemic. Globally, we have had the least number of deaths per capita in a big country. We have handled our domestic as well as international needs well. We have also done well in terms of economy because we did not go for only demand side stimuli. We went for both demand and supply side measures. As far as the American policy is concerned, sir, they were very good as far as their pharmaceutical industry is concerned. They were able to get vaccines well, but they did not go for equitable distribution of vaccines, and their economic measures were slightly misplaced with going for demand side measures only, which is now leading to federal tapering and inflation across the globe.
Let's move to international relations and the foreign services where you wish to be. What, in your view, are India's most pressing challenges internationally?
So, firstly, I believe the Chinese unilateral revisionism in our neighborhood as well as in the Indo-Pacific poses a challenge for us. Secondly, sir, walking the tightrope between the Western and the Eastern blocs is becoming more and more difficult as the crisis in Ukraine becomes more belligerent. Thirdly, sir, I believe the strength of our cadre needs to be improved. We are currently at only 800 officers, and if we wish to compete on an equal footing with the Chinese and the Americans, they have 3,000 and 20,000 officers respectively. So I think, sir, in these areas we can improve.
Let's focus on China a little bit. And the problem has been with us for now 75 years, like started 2 years, and it's still there, and in some ways become. So what we have been doing, just how we responded to the China issue over these 75 years, and where did we go wrong?
Sir, I believe India's response to China has had good as well as bad measures. I believe our jolt in 1962 was a setback to us. Sir, I can recall from Sri Shyam Sharan's book, How India Looks at the World, that Zhou Enlai famously offered us a double package deal where we could get sovereignty over Arunachal Pradesh while they could claim Aksai Chin. I think that is something we could have gone for. In the recent times, sir, I think the idea of the Indo-Pacific, the Quad and the Western Quad is a good measure that counters China in the maritime domain as well. Sir, moreover, I feel in our neighborhood, we should drop our big brother perception and be more magnanimous towards our neighbors so that China cannot successfully intervene in our neighborhood countries like it has been recently.
No, I mean, that's problematic because China's biggest supporter in the neighborhood is Pakistan.
So,
And the China-Pakistan relationship is not a response to India acting as a big brother to Pakistan.
so,
Even Pakistan would not say that.
so,
So how would that help? And you can be a better neighbor to Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or some other countries. There's always room to be a better neighbor because you're big.
so.
But how would this have helped us in keeping the Chinese away from our neighborhood? Let's say Pakistan, which is their strategic ally, right?
So,
They actually enabled, as you know, Pakistan's nuclearization.
so the point about the big brother and magnanimity, I think it applies to every country in our neighborhood except Pakistan. Pakistan, I would treat as a different issue. Pakistan has a deep state and a military establishment far bigger than their domestic requirements. And to engineer a conflict with India is an existential problem for the Pakistani military. So,
Okay, let's move to another country then. Pakistan is an exception and that's a malign entity, let's agree. What about India's relations with Nepal? Are we being big brotherly with Nepal? Because we've had all manner of trouble with the Nepalese over the past 20 years. Have we been big brotherly? What do you think?
Sir, I think with Nepal we have had certain missteps and we have been big brotherly in certain cases. Especially the Madhesi issue was a big flashpoint in our relationship. Recently, sir, I believe we are doing better, but the current elections, the outcome has not been very favorable for India with the two communist parties aligning. So I think now we need to go back to our original stance of being magnanimous, offering them diplomatic aid, going for civilizational and people-to-people ties, and not worrying about what the political establishment there is saying for their own political purposes.
So you said that we overreached on the Malaysia issue, but that's a generic issue. Let's say, let us talk about India's approach, the government's approach to population of Indian origin in our neighboring countries.
So,
There's there's Nepal, Madheshis in Nepal. There are Indian origin populations in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Sri Lanka.
so.
How should we be dealing with them? Are they our problem or are they not our problem?
So the Indian origin population in our neighborhood is India's key interest. As the External Affairs Minister has recently, in his visit to Colombo, called for a 13 Amendment plus. This, I think, is a good measure because he's calling for autonomy in the northeastern regions for the Tamils without going for a big brotherly approach. He's calling for a constitutional measure which the Sri Lankans themselves have promised. I think this is one of the approaches we could follow.
What about Pakistan? The Pakistani Prime Minister said in an interview a couple of weeks ago that they have learned their lesson and they want to live in peace with India, etc. So making some noises that we did not expect. So what should we be doing with Pakistan? Should we be doing nothing? What should we be doing?
Sir, I believe for Pakistan we must realize the principle that terror and talks cannot go together. And when we talk to them, we must talk to the military establishment as well as the civil establishment together. We have recently invited External Affairs Minister Mr. Bhutto to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meet. I think this is a welcome step. But along with the statement that the Pakistani Prime Minister gave, he has also then put a caveat and said that Indian illegal actions in Kashmir need to be revoked. They have also been constantly obstructing on our Indus Water Treaty, through the Indus Water Treaty. So I believe we can talk to them only if these issues are resolved and we can go for patient diplomacy.
But inviting the Pakistani Foreign Minister of Pakistan to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting summit is not a bilateral gesture on our part. As chairman, you have to invite members. Pakistan is a member of the SCO. You do not have the option of not inviting them. So that is not a policy move. That is simply you are doing what you have to do as a chairman. So what should, and you said we should tell them that terror and you said terror and peace do not go together. So but what is our present policy? Isn't that what we are telling them? That we've not been talking to them for a long time. So we are trying to tell them that terror and peacemaking cannot go together. That is what we have been doing.
Yeah.
So do we continue in this stance or does it merit a change? Do we sort of, if they make these positive noises, should we respond? What should we do?
Sir, I think we can continue with our present stand. till we don't get an assurance, or we don't make the realization, we have gotten this assurance many times, till we don't get the realization that they are not using their territory to, and not using terrorism as a policy of statecraft. Only when this issue is resolved should we discuss the other issues with them.
Okay, let's move to your understanding of the life of a foreign service officer.
So,
Um, what are the challenges that you think you would face as a foreign service officer on the personal front? I'm not talking about professional interest and professionalism. That's a different thing.
so
But for you and for your family, what kind of challenges would you be facing?
Sir, I am the only son. Sorry, sorry, sir. Sir, I am the only son of my parents. So I believe when I have to live in foreign countries, it might become an issue for my parents here. Sir, when I will have to move from one country to the other, adopting and enacting and accommodating different cultures might become an issue, and different cuisines can become an issue for me. And thirdly, sir, I believe in every different country, the manner of life is very different, and adaptability is something that will be needed on my part.
And then there is the question of, when you get married, you're single now, your spouse, you would want to have a career, and how will she handle that with you moving from one country to another? There will be issue of when you have family, you have children, they will go to school. How will you handle all that?
Sir, I realize that with my marriage, if I am selected in the foreign service, my spouse will have to make some compromises on the professional front. And this will be a great demand because I am putting my career first, and her career will be sacrificed. So I believe this can only be done with an honest conversation, and I would like to have her perspective on this. I think whatever she says would be the right idea. Sir, in my limited understanding through my seniors who are in the foreign service, they have told me that doctors, when they go abroad, they get some opportunities. But again, I would like to take the view of my spouse. As far as the children are concerned, I I have learned that CBSE has some schools in foreign countries as well, and they have opportunities of education.
Or you can marry someone in the foreign service if you find someone who attracts you and she is attracted to you, so marry someone in the foreign service. In which case, some of these issues will get resolved.
Sir, I believe I am too young to make this decision right now.
But you don't see that as an insurmountable problem. That's good. I see that you studied French earlier on in school. Did you give it up? Or you kept it up?
Sir, I have limited understanding of French, and it was not in my 12th grade as a doctor. It was not a subject that was allowed. But working in medical tourism, I have met with people from Africa. So some of them speak French, so I'm able to understand it, but I'm not that good at speaking it.
Okay. Very good, Shivin. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. So, don't you? What I feel, I don't want to ask from you. What I feel,
Sir.
we will be losing a very good medico. What is your say to it?
Sir, even currently, I am not working in the typical field of clinical medicine. Since my interest has always been in public health, I am working as in the field of medical tourism.
You are a gynecologist and pediatric. They are really good, very good subjects in medico.
So these are compulsory subjects that every person has to study in the final year. But I have studied 19 subjects in my medical college.
But optionals are there. But in the final year, you have some options. Options are there.
No, sir. In the MBBS, there are no optionals in the final
No
year.
options. But in general, in higher for MS or something like that, if you have something in the last year of the MBBS, then that will give the preference for the admission in the next MS or something. It's not there.
No, sir, that is not the case. When we join our MDs, we can pick any of the 19 subjects that we have studied over the past 4.5 years.
Okay. Not medicines or surgery. They are not a separate subject in the final year of the MBBS.
Sir, every MBBS has to study all of these 19 subjects. When they go for a higher MD or MS, then they can choose their subject, and that is why I have not done an MD.
Good. Medicine is your subject and you take an anthropology.
Sir.
Why it is?
So while I was preparing for this examination, I was also working. So I thought revising 5 years of medical science that has no consonance with the general studies might be a difficult task. So I picked a subject that was close to my core area of biology, and that would help me with the general studies as well.
How it is useful in tracing the history of the mankind, anthro.
Sir, anthropology talks about a holistic study of humans. Sir, it studies the how humans have evolved biologically as well as culturally. On the biological front, we study Australopithecines, Homo habilis, Homo neanderthals, and Homo erectus, as well as Homo sapiens, and how they have evolved and what are the various theories for this. On the cultural front, we see how cultures have evolved through the times with advancements and industrialization.
Uh, where is Indo-Aryans at the moment also? Pure Indo-Aryans at the moment. They are there in India.
Sir, Indo-Aryans is a
Pure Indo-Aryans. From that, still we have a resemblance.
Sir, I believe the maximum resemblance would be in the Kashmir region and the western parts that are bordering Pakistan. I believe Pakistan would have more Indo-Aryans. But sir, research is going on the R1A1 RN gene and the Rakhi Gadi woman. I think when that research is completed, we will have better information.
But generally
What
it is
people are
said,
saying now that Aryan, as you know, in any case, is a linguistic expression more
Sir.
than an ethnic
Sir.
expression. And when you look at the sort of blood groups, etc., it gets more complicated.
Sir.
But Aryan is a group of languages. It is
Sir.
not ethnicity, or it is not a racial category.
Sir, Aryans is directly identified with the Proto-Indo-European languages, and it is a linguistic entity. However, Sir, Professor Vasant Shinde has recently in Rakhi Gadi launched a study on the R1A1 gene, and it is associated with the Aryan race. And Sir, still this issue is being researched, and this is.
Have you read the book by Tony Joseph, which is done very well, the bestseller, Early Indians?
Sorry, sir, I have not read that.
Okay. Well, I mean, when you get the time, do read it. It's a good summation of the debate. Please.
Thank you, sir.
but generally it is said in Kullu Valley, Parvati river, where oldest the democracy is there, that is still treated to be the pure Indo-Aryan at the moment also.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Pakistan you were talking to. Now it is, though it has to say something, but into actions,
Sir.
now it is little relaxing toward India. It is not like cross-border firing. Now it has reduced, or it is not there.
Sir.
And about terrorists harboring in Pakistan or something like that. And what we feel that it is not basically the Pakistan, but why Pakistan is doing, it might have been doing earlier also, but it is China which is always generally using veto while we are declaring some terrorists in Pakistan or somewhere that declare them international terrorists.
Sir.
Don't you think that it is China which is promoting terrorism than that it is Pakistan?
So the Chinese government has on multiple times used a technical hold to prevent terrorists from being listed as terrorists in the United Nations Security Council.
So when it is veto power which is using its power, then these smaller countries, they will always be there to favor China. China will be using it. So it is not that China should be listed in that particular list of promoting terrorism than the Pakistan or Afghanistan.
Sir, I believe after the 1971 war with Pakistan, the Pakistan strategy of leading India through 1,000 cuts, I believe that is the genesis of their hybrid warfare against India. I think China has supported it, but I don't think that it is only the Chinese who are doing it. I'm sure the Pakistanis as well have been doing it and doing it actively. Moreover, sir, they have been reconciliatory noises from the Pakistani Prime Minister, but their actions, they have stopped cross-border firing to an extent, maybe because of their economic crisis, but they continue to, hamper our actions on the Indus waters and continue to internationalize the issue of Kashmir. So I think Pakistan itself is also responsible.
Okay. Afghanistan and Pakistan, if we see, that terrorists were there. Terror means Taliban was there in Pakistan.
Sir.
Now Taliban is ruling, but Taliban is now against Pakistan.
Sir.
How do you see this? It is just a eyewash, or it is really something is there between Pakistan and Afghanistan?
Sir, I believe the Pakistani policy of achieving strategic depth in Afghanistan has failed terribly. They were planning to aid the Taliban to take over against the Americans. Firstly, the Taliban did not require their help, and now the Afghan Taliban is not acting against the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is against the Durand Line issue, and recently also they have attacked in Peshawar, and the Afghan Taliban is refusing to sanction them. So I believe this has now become a Frankenstein's monster sort of for Pakistan. They have harbored Taliban for a very long time. And as Secretary Clinton once said, if you have snakes in your backyard, they will come and bite you as well.
But yesterday I was watching some TV news, and it was said that it is ISI which promoted that bombing in Peshawar, killing police in Peshawar or something like that. That was, is it something, not that Pakistan, Afghanistan, and this ISI or something, they all are mixed up, are messed up?
Sir, I don't think I have this information.
Okay. Okay. Coming to your practical part of the subject, medicine as a industry, commercial industry, or medicine as a public service. Now, if we go to any hospital, instead of medicines, everything is there. You said medical tourism or something like that. I hardly consider it to be tourism. It is a business now. Room is very costly over there, but all kind of facilities are there. But when we come to the common man is quite away from. Here we are promoting Aam Admi Mohalla Clinic or something, or here Mohalla Clinic or something like that. But India is quite away from the medicines. How do you think?
Sir, I think the private sector in medicine has expanded a lot. They have 60% of our beds and 85% of our doctors. So for this, the government has launched the Ayushman Bharat initiative, where all people can access private hospitals and an insurance system is done. Principally, sir, I think the private sector is not a problem. It is the private sector that came up with our vaccines. They help us innovate. They earn foreign exchange for us. But I think, sir, the profiteering by the private sector is a problem. That needs to be regulated, and a balance needs to be struck between their needs of profit and their ability of serving the country.
Instead of controlling disease, it should be a prevention should be more, and medical profession is not doing as the Ayurvedic profession is doing for prevention. Why it is not? Medical profession, it is not only control the disease. All the pharma companies, they are on the sale only for the controlling. Instead, they should promote the prevention. But it is not being done compared to Ayurveda. How do you think?
Sir, I absolutely agree that if we invest more in primary healthcare and preventive measures, we will be much better suited to deal with our health challenges. However, sir, as Ayurveda is now being integrated and Ayush doctors are now being integrated, I believe they have a much better strategic position with regards to prevention due to less side effects and herbal medicines, and they are not that specialized in terms of surgeries. So I think we can integrate these two systems where Ayush can deal with preventions and allopathy can then deal with life-saving secondary and tertiary interventions.
Doctors are preferring in cities than in rural areas, and India live in rural area.
Sir.
Just 25% in urban.
Sir.
So, but how this skewed distribution of doctors can help the rural India to cope up with the disease?
Sir, in this case, I would like to say that healing is a process, and doctor is just one element of that process. Infrastructure, pharmacies are
But
also.
he may be one, but he is the main.
Sir, as per the Indian.
We should not say always one. Doctor means doctor. Others are helpers to the doctors.
Sir, as per the Indian public health standards, our primary health centers, only 13% of them meet the standards requisitioned by the government. Moreover, sir, more and more states are now coming up with bond policies for doctors to serve in the rural areas. So I think an integrated approach where bond policies are enacted, infrastructure is made better, pharmaceuticals are made available, and connectivity links are made. I
But
think
doctors cannot be bonded by such things. They are educating, they are getting education, something like that. So if we have a bond, they will go out of India. Most of the doctors are out of India at the moment from the India.
Sir, as far as the statistics that I'm aware of, only 2% of Indian doctors go abroad for their further studies. Sir, if we give them a bond policy, when they go to rural India, they will realize that serving in rural India is much more rewarding. Even in my internship, I have spent 3 months in a village, and we get to learn about a lot of problems directly.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Shivin. So basically, I've heard through the entire conversation and I found that you've used some words a number of times,
Sir.
like magnanimous, big brotherly, while explaining India's stance in the neighborhood.
Sir.
Uh, do you see these issues, like big brotherly is obviously a negative connotation, right?
Sir.
Do you see magnanimous and big brotherly together could be used positively when it comes to posturing as a regional first responder?
Sir, India's policy of security and growth for all in the region and wanting to become a first responder does involve some element of magnanimity as well as some element of big brotherliness, because it will require us to harness capabilities in our neighborhood.
मैग्नानिमिटी को थोड़ा एक्सप्लेन करो.
So, magnanimity, in my opinion, would be doing things for others without expecting something in return.
But concretely, I mean, things like trade access, magnanimity, one obvious way of showing that is to give access to the Indian market.
So,
in, more liberalized.
एक्सप्लेन यहाँ पर ही चाहिए.
So, like we have done with Nepal, for their citizens to come to India and work, we can give them transit access under the UN clause and make India the preferred country of transit without asking for return. The way we have dealt with the land boundary agreement, I think that was with Bangladesh. That was a great display of magnanimity on the Indian front.
Okay, now with a lot of shrinking of global trade, I see that countries are looking inside. Even India is sort of coming to see and bend its economics on internal consumption rather than sort of connecting with the globe outside, because majorly this has been the trend with major developed countries as well, right? Do you really see the sanctioned strength of IFS officers is supposed to be fulfilled? Because I don't see that need.
Sir, I believe in terms of economics, with the weaponization of supply chains, countries are looking inward. But that is just one part of what the Foreign Service does. And this is the current trend. I'm sure as we go forward, there will be many other developments in this regard. And there are many other things that foreign officers do for India. Economics is just one part of that. So
economics is very, very important part of that, because recently we heard that Hindenburg report.
Sir.
Right? Don't you see that? Don't you see this as an economic imperialism of the West?
So economics definitely is a very important part as far as global relations are concerned. As far as the Hindenburg report is concerned, I feel this is a issue of corporate knowledge, and this, I don't see this as economic imperialism if the report is substantially true.
Okay. Do you know that there were a number of such reports passed against a company called Evergrande on the Chinese side?
Yes, Evergrande is a Chinese real estate firm.
But China was able to prevent its downfall. Only when Chinese administration went against Evergrande, the Evergrande company collapsed. Don't you see that India's interest should also be pursued in the same manner? India was not able to do that.
Sir, I am not that aware of the Evergrande case, and I'd like to apologize.
Okay, and you're aware of this Hindenburg report, right?
Sir.
And the consequences that we see at the stock market and specifically with respect to the company.
Sir.
Why do you see that this particular organization was impacted so negatively because of Hindenburg report?
Sir, I believe as far as the Adani group was concerned, the Hindenburg report has not revealed anything that great that the market did not already know. Their PE ratio was high, and it was believed that the share was overvalued already. It is only that after publishing that report and lack of a substantial
PE ratio was high?
Yes.
What is that?
It's profit to earnings ratio, and the Adani group's profit to earnings ratio, I believe, was somewhere
It's a good thing, no?
So good PE, we should have less PE ratio for a good stock.
Profit per?
Sir, it is calculated in terms of stock price. It's called profit to earnings, but it's not calculated directly by profit to earnings.
Okay.
A lower PE ratio is a
It
good.
is not price. Yeah, it's price to earnings ratio.
Price to earnings.
Sorry, sir.
Not profit, it's price to earnings. Price of a share
Right.
compared to
Earning per share, the book value.
Sorry, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and what do you see again? Like coming back to the same topic. Okay, India, and if you look at Adani as an example, is
Sure.
reliant on a lot of foreign funding.
Sir.
The reason why Adani fell is because 7 out of its several industries, I guess it's a conglomerate of 7 industries, right?
Sure.
So most of them were reliant on foreign funding.
Sure.
The moment Hindenburg report came out, these foreign funding resources, these channels would not really be there right at that time. So don't you see that foreign policy experts should also weigh their impact on creating a balanced approach towards such kind of reports which come out? They should be scrutinized before they are made public. And should foreign expats must have done something on this ground? Nation's interest is, after all, is in question.
Sir, as far.
Actually,
Yeah.
there is infusion of foreign funding.
Hmm.
A lot of my big chunk of money was invested in Adani stocks by this UAE funds.
Huh.
So I'm just saying that it's not as if everyone has outside has said that we get out. So.
They invested, but ultimately the kind of it is almost like from third richest person to 15th richest person today. He has fallen multiple steps on the ladder. So interest of the nation is also concerned, and this is where foreign experts should come into play, right? Their role is there. Where do you see your role could be placed in between this crisis as a foreign service aspirant?
Sir, I believe a foreign service officer can play multiple roles here. Firstly, in terms of publishing the report, he can give advance warning to his government or with regards to what might be brewing, because I'm sure the intelligence is available on these things. Secondly, he could help mobilize funding, as Sir has rightly pointed out. A UAE investor did invest about 20,000 crores in Adani, but
How? Sorry?
so close to 20,000 crores was offered by a UAE investor.
No.
FPO was
It was
subscribed
400 million, 3,600 crore were to be invested by UAE group, the UAE, the holding, the international holding from UAE.
So, but as the FPO was oversubscribed to 112% after this funding was received, it is only after the market share has fallen below the FPO price that the FPO has been withdrawn. So I believe there were some fundamental problems with the Adani Group's economics as well here. In case there were no fundamental problems, fall would not have been this drastic.
Okay. Okay. You also mentioned about Indo-Pacific and Quad, right? Most of these terms are Western givings. India never, went in to ask for Indo-Pacific. The term was coined by Donald Trump while one of his speeches. So it was never an Indian calling that these kind of, overtures and pivotal roles should be provided to these areas in literature. It was only after Donald Trump made and coined these terms, India all of a sudden came into the picture, in this entire Indo-Pacific and the Asia Pacific was pivoted. India was a pivot to these areas. So do you think India has, I believe that India has not done much with respect to, bringing such change in global literature.
So I would take a different stance on Indo-Pacific and Quad. Quad was an idea by late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in a 2007 article called Asia Pacific Security Diamond. And India was very much a part of that idea. As far as the Indo-Pacific is concerned, maybe the literature has come from the West, but in the Shangri-La Dialogue of 2018 and post that, our foreign policy has always called for an Indo-Pacific and looking at it as a combined geopolitical construct.
Okay. Okay, Haryana, you come from the state, right?
Sir.
What Haryana can do to bring herself at the global stage?
So Haryana has many important investment destinations, such as Gurgaon, Faridabad, and the areas near Yamunanagar also now. But sir, I think there needs to be improvement in terms of infrastructure, in terms of law and order, and in terms of HDI. Being a very rich state, Haryana still has a very high IMR. It is more than the national average, despite having much more GSDP than the national average. So I believe once these issues are fixed, we can get a lot of investment, as well as Haryana can be an important exporter of wheat and rice, being an agricultural state.
Have you heard of Section 306 of IPC?
Sir, I might be able to recall if you give me permission.
Yes,
I'm
please.
not sure.
Please, please.
Sir, is it concerned with sexual assaults and rape?
No.
Alright, sir. Sorry, I'm not aware.
Okay, you took part. You're founder of Turncoat Debating Society in your college.
Sir.
What was that debating society about?
Sir, turncoat debating is a different form of debating than conventional debating. In conventional debating, we take a side for or against and we argue for that side. In turncoat debating, the topic is given just 3 minutes before the candidate is supposed to speak. And after thinking for 3 minutes, he is supposed to speak for 3 minutes. First minute, he will speak for the motion. The second minute, he will speak against the motion. And in the third minute, he will sum up. It helps see spontaneity and how cogently you can switch from one side to the other.
Okay. Have you heard of Jat, Churaman?
Sorry, sir, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. He was historically one of the biggest turncoat.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. So India right now is posturing itself as what? Nam, non-Nam, polarized towards some group? What?
Sir, India is posturing itself as the voice of the Global South. We have had a recent Voice of the Global South summit as well. I think we are very well placed to be a southwestern power where we can be a bridge between the Western nations and the Global South. We are also calling for strategic autonomy, which I believe is slightly different than NAM.
Okay.
Positioning yourself. You want to say positioning yourself, not posturing yourself.
Sorry, sir. Thank you, sir.
And in that case, taking that further, do you see that India's alignment with West has come at the cost of its relationship with Russia?
Sir, I believe walking with the Indian tradition of Madhyamika, India has done well so far in engaging with the West as well as with the Russians. We have called for an end to belligerence in Ukraine without directly condemning Russia. We have increased our oil imports from Russia by 700%, while also actively engaging with Quad, the Americans and the Europeans. So I feel so far India has walked the tightrope very well, recognizing a historical partner and a new emerging alliance as well.
Okay, that was it from me.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent, Shivin.
Sir, this is my interview.
You have many strengths. You have
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir,
thought about a career in the foreign service well.
sir, I'm sorry. Can I write or is this being recorded as well?
It is being recorded and you will get this also, and feedback you will be given after.
Thank you, sir.
So I think it is clear that you have, in your mind, you're sort of committed to a foreign service career, and you can defend that choice very well, and that's those are great strengths. You are very articulate.
Thank
You
you,
have thought about, I talked about vaccination-related issues, the pandemic.
Sir.
You responded to all that very well. I don't immediately see, any particular weakness that I want to alert you to.
Thank you, sir.
But an interview is an interview, and people can this or mock. People can, there are other areas that we did not touch upon. I spent a lot of time, foreign service, international relations, and then we did not get the time to go into some other areas.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you would come up in those areas too. So I don't know what advice I can give you. I can wish you all the best, and I think you would be an asset to the foreign service if you're selected. So I wish you're selected.
Thank you, sir.
But बताएं आप सिंह साहब बताएं.
रिटर्न कैसा हुआ आपका?
So last year I missed the mains by only 18 marks because my optional was not prepared and it was my first attempt. This year I think I have done better. But
You have done better.
Very difficult to estimate.
ओके, आपका थोड़ा सा क्या है कि यूनिफॉर्म फ्लो है, इसको हल्का सा नॉर्मल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कर्व की तरफ को ले जाएंगे. आई थिंक दैट विल बी मच बेटर. वेयर आंसर इज वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग, लिटिल पिच शुड बी लिटिल हायर. दैट विल गिव यू अ लिटिल मोर वेटेज. उसमें क्या होगा कि जब उस पार्ट को आप बोलोगे उस पर डिस्कशन शुरू हो जाएगी, और वहीं पर आप जो है अपने आप को स्ट्रेंथन कर सकते हैं.
Sir,
क्योंकि एंड इज ऑलवेज वीकर, और यदि आप एंड तक ले गए और उस वीक वाले पार्ट पर डिस्कशन होगी तो हो सकता है यू विल लूजर ऑन दैट।
I understand, sir. Thank you.
आप समझिए कि एक पार्ट में है। सेकेंडली एक्सेलेंट, देखिए आपका मेडिको पार्ट इज़ वेरी गुड, फॉरेन वाला पार्ट इज़ वेरी गुड। एक स्टेट में थोड़ा सा और कंसंट्रेट, स्टेट के पार्ट को और कंसंट्रेट करिए, जो मेरे को थोड़ा सा लगा। स्टेट में आपको मतलब यदि गुड़गांव है तो मान लिया आपके पास में गुड़गांव से ऊपर एक क्वेश्चन शुरू हो गया कि सफारी, बिगेस्ट सफारी वहाँ पर आने वाली है,
Sir.
उस पर आपकी मास्टरी हो जानी चाहिए। इस प्रकार से आपको क्वेश्चन ही उधर ले जाना चाहिए।
Sir.
हमें फोर्स कर देना चाहिए दैट वी शुड आस्क समथिंग ऑन दैट पर्टिकुलर पार्ट।
Sir.
आप इस प्रकार से नहीं आप अभी क्रिएट कर पा रहे हैं, और आप ऐसी जगह क्रिएट कर दे रहे हैं जहाँ पर थोड़ा सा आप वीक हैं।
Sir.
ऐसे मैंने चेक किया आपको आंसरिंग में।
Sir.
एक आंसर जो मैंने देखा, आप पैराग्राफ टाइप में आंसर दे रहे हैं, उसको आप 1 2 बोलना नहीं है। दिस इज द मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट, दिस इज ऑल्सो वन ऑफ द इम्पॉर्टेंट, एंड दिस इज ऑल्सो देयर। ऐसे बोलोगे आप तो आपका आंसर ऐसे लगेगा दैट यू आर स्ट्रक्चर्ड योर आंसर।
Sir.
ये कुछ ऐसा पार्ट है जिसमें कि आपको बहुत अच्छा बना देगा। क्यों सर आपका?
Thank you, sir.
No, that's good. I think structure and answer is good.
Very
but at the same time, you cannot sound bookish.
Sir.
लगना नहीं चाहिए बुकिश पार्ट,
Sir.
है ना? तो मैं समझता हूँ, आप बोलो और आप क्या पूछना चाहते हो, क्योंकि आपको हम तैयार ऐसा करना चाहते हैं। वी वांट टू सी यू इन द फर्स्ट 2 3 ओनली।
Think about the neighborhood a little more carefully. Because look, neighborhood is half our foreign policy, or should be.
पाकिस्तान,
So
अफगानिस्तान।
think about the neighborhood. Why have we not done better in the neighborhood? And it is not an easy question. No one has an answer. Otherwise, we would be doing better. I don't have an answer. You don't
अपने
have an
आप आंसर। पाकिस्तान का थोड़ा सा एक अच्छा सा एक आइडिया पाकिस्तान अफगानिस्तान का ही हो सकता है। देखिए
Think
आप,
about it.
पाकिस्तान ने जो पहले उनका स्टांस था वो थोड़ा रिड्यूस हुआ है, मे बी उनको क्योंकि इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस। नाउ बैक एंड चैनल में तो हम लोग हैं थोड़ा सा पाकिस्तान से, बट हम और थोड़े से अब होने चाहिए, क्योंकि जनता चाहती है कि गवर्नमेंट के ऊपर प्रेशर रहे, वहाँ की जनता। तो उसको आप थोड़ा सा हाईलाइट करिए। नाउ द पीपल ऑफ पाकिस्तान दे आल्सो वांट दैट शन दैट काइंड ऑफ एनिमिटी विद इंडिया, so that at our not only economic but we have cultural ties with Pakistan, because they both are almost same. So these are the basic area. Most of the items we import from Pakistan which we are not lacking, we are lacking in India, and we are paying higher cost for those items coming through something like that. तो ये कुछ ऐसे एरियाज हैं जिसमें आप और थोड़ा सा अच्छे
neighborhood may, since you talked of big brotherliness, one aspect that you may like to think about and see how you want to address it is the fact of India's civilizationally. Civilizationally, we are really the only entity here. Whether it's Pakistan or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, civilizationally we are the fountainhead. Now that's a fact. But at the same time, how do you play it with neighboring countries? You have to, for example, Buddhism. Now Buddha was born in Nepal, right? And but of course, उनका कर्म जो जन्मभूमि जो है, कर्मभूमि तो भारत ही था. So how do we also provide some cultural space to our neighbors? Think about it.
From my end, see, I found your answers good. मतलब it was above average presentation I'm finding. Like it's good के ऊपर है आपका. Content wise थोड़ा हम भी when we saw, and since we are not here to eliminate you, we are here to bring your good parts outside, right? To expose your good parts. So the moment we saw your preferences, we try to see whether you are good there or not, because it is expected that from the panel a number of questions could be directed, but otherwise is also true. If I found you asking for Indian Foreign Service as your first preference, I may have this feeling that you are not that good, or you may be poor judgmentally, right? एक वो आया था ना आपका, थोड़ा मेरा बायस आ सकता है, एक प्रिजनर्स डिलेमा में आ सकता हूँ, गेम थ्योरी, I'll think of otherwise and see whether you are good there or not. So I found that you are not, you are a little less adept with respect to IPC 306 जो मैंने पूछा उसके बारे में, which was related to suicide rates. So mental health से related था वो वाला, है ना? तो सुइसाइड जो इशू है उसको डीक्रिमिनलाइज करा गया है,
Sir.
राइट? सो उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा
And
मुझे
you mentioned mental
Sir,
health
actually,
as
हाँ
an interest.
हाँ you
Sir, I have read about that issue. I am aware of India's
you
suicide
need
rate
हाँ
to
as
be
well,
on
but I
firm
was
ground.
not aware of the particular
हाँ.
condition.
Prevention क्या है
Thank you, sir.
interest, so 306 that you need to know.
Sir.
टर्न कोड के ऊपर मैं और भी सवाल पूछ सकता था। आई एम श्योर यू वुड हैव नोट जाट चूरजमल के बारे में जो मैंने पूछा, चूरामन हैं और भी बहुत सारे हैं। दीज गाइज वेयर फाइटिंग फॉर वन ग्रुप एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम, वाइल इन वॉर इटसेल्फ दे चेंज टू द अदर ग्रुप।
Sir.
तो ये हुआ है। मैं और गुड़गांव और आता मैं, बट सिंस वी हैव ऑलरेडी इन्वेस्टेड सो मच टाइम इन फॉरेन रिलेशंस, वी हैव आस्क्ड यू अ लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस, सो आई बिलीव दैट इज द एरिया। आप अच्छे हो जो फॉरेन अफेयर वाला, बट हियर यू माइट हैव टू वर्क अ लिटिल बिट बिकॉज दीज आर अनएक्सपोज्ड, अनप्रिपेयर्ड मे बी, देन you'll have to prepare a little bit here. थोड़ा इंटरनल प्रिपेयर कर लो, बाकी फॉरेन का तो क्लियर है।
Sir, my interview is on 10th March.
10th मार्च, ओके,
टाइम है।
यू हैव टाइम। बिग ब्रदरली के
रूरल
ऊपर
मेडिकल, मैंने आपको रूरल वाला इसलिए टच किया था, उस पर थोड़ा डेप्थ नहीं थी, मैं आपको सही बताता हूँ।
Sir.
मतलब किसी भी रूरल कम्युनिटी में चले जाओ, वहाँ डॉक्टर्स अवेलेबल नहीं है।
Sir, but there is no easy answer to this.
वो
sir.
आंसर नहीं है, बट ठीक है। Yes, these are the areas where the government should, the doctors should, the medical association should, that there are Rotary clubs, Rhine clubs. मुझे याद है हम जंगल में, मैं तो फॉरेस्ट सर्विस से हूँ, तो हम तो रोटरी क्लब और लाइन क्लब को फॉरेस्ट में जो हमारे वन ग्राम हैं हम उसमें लेके जाते थे। मजबूरी है, वहाँ तो कुछ है ही नहीं। सो दीज आर द एरियाज, वहाँ पर हमारा प्रेजेंस जो है मेडिकोस का बहुत कम।
और फॉरेन अफेयर्स में थोड़ा वो लाइमलाइट में ज़्यादा जाता है, यूएस इधर उधर, लेकिन बॉर्डर हाट वगैरह ऐसे एरियाज हैं जहाँ पर अगेन योर एक्सपर्टीज विल बी सीन, हाउ यू नो हाउ रेड वी आर विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू दीज इशूज एट बॉर्डर, जो सर ने कहा था वहाँ पर, राइट? सो ग्लैमरस पार्ट में तो गुड है अभी तक, बट थोड़ा सा जो थोड़ा रूडिमेंट्री है, थोड़ा अनकवर्ड है, थोड़ा है ना वैसा है, उसमें थोड़ा प्रिपेयर करो। आई थिंक यू विल गो अबव द थ्रेशोल्ड, आप क्लियर करोगे, बट प्रिपेयर ऑन दैट। आईएफएस ना मिले हो सकता है इसी कारण से, यू माइट गेट आईएएस, है ना, हो सकता है, यू आर गुड ऑन अ नंबर ऑफ काउंट्स, बट अगर आपको आईएफएस के लिए जाना है तो यू हैव टू प्रिपेयर दीज एरियाज एज वेल, है ना, मिल सकता है। आई एम श्योर, मैं थोड़ा सा डरा रहा हूँ, बट आई वॉन्ट यू टू, हाँ,
It is getting into the IAS is far more difficult than the foreign service. So
Sir,
don't worry
the
about
IAS
that.
cutoff is higher.
Cutoff is because people
IAS
are.
cutoff
आपने प्रेफरेंस डाल रखी है ना?
Sir, but there is no rank where I will not get the IFS, but get the IAS. There is no rank like that. Last year, IAS cut off at 72 and IFS cut off at 89.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's easier technically, but
No,
there's not a lot of
for
difference.
IAS, but anyway, so
There's not a lot of difference, although.
हाँ, there is no much difference, but I think you need to prepare a little bit
I
on these
understand.
areas, because होता क्या है, since your preference is number one for IFS, chances are,
So,
right? So जो area explain किया, I believe this is very
Sir.
good explanation to you and your areas which you need to cover.
Sir,
All the very best,
thank you.
and we hope that your name comes up.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
we want to see you in the list.
very good, Shivin. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Yeah,
you, sir.
good,
Thank
man.
you, sir. Thank you, sir.